Welcome to my presentation on corridos. This is for Music 9 and this is for the Cultural Music Project, and today we're going to take a look at into the culture of corridos and the change in its sound over time and locations. Right. Okay. So to start us off, we have what are corridos. So corridos is a type of traditional Mexican music that is mainly instrumented with guitars and is heavily focused on storytelling. Although the content of corridos has changed over time and place, the origin of storytelling remains essence. Okay, so some general things about corridos here. The stories told by corridos are many of adventures in the struggles of Mexican artists that sing them. They began as recited poems and were typically traditionally constructed of 9 stanzas of 4 lines each to make up 10 syllables. Like we mentioned before, it's usually accompanied mainly by guitar. Okay, so then now we're going to get into 3 different types of corridos. Here we have our traditional corridos, kind of the corridos here that started it off. So traditional corridos can date back to the 1800s during the Mexican Revolution. They are considered an oral history through the storytelling, like we mentioned. It depicts the life of Mexicans of this time and their daily adventures, whether it be their time on the ranch and their life. And a lot of what you see with this music is that continuous harmony created by the guitar, not anything too special in terms of texture, but just a very basic guitar strum, as we'll hear in the background here. And vocals generally follow the same rhythm as the guitar and are sung in verse as established by its poetic origins. Okay, and then the song playing in the background here is Toma de Gelava, Cancioneros de los Santos, and it's also the album cover featured on the left here. And yeah, this is one of the older corridos, and it just talks about the daily lives of Mexicans in that time frame throughout the year. Okay, so moving on to narco corridos. There's some album covers here of narco corridos. So what are narco corridos? They began in the 1970s and became extremely popular in the 1990s as cartels in Mexico began to get more national attention, and drug culture and cartels were a big part of Mexico and people in Mexico's lives. These types of corridos told stories of drug lords, arrests, and shootouts, etc. So still maintaining that traditional storytelling element, but now with these stories of crime and the cartels and these are very much real experiences here. So still keeping in touch with that tradition. They were actually banned by the Mexican government on Mexican Airways for its provocative content. And popular artists are Tigres de los Norte, Tucanes de Tijuana, and El Commander. And you see here on the bottom left corner, there's a picture of Snoop Dogg with Banda MS. Snoop Dogg is a very big fan of these narco corridos, and it would make sense given it's very falls in line in what they would call gangster music. Okay, a little bit more on this kind of analyzing narco corridos here. Still has that traditional guitar, but it's much higher in pitch, accompanied by drums now, and the accordion is very big here in these narco corridos, and it helps create a very polyphonic texture here. Guitar creates a melody as well, just like regular, and then the accordion, it's a aerophone, creates a very uplifting sound. and the speed that it's played at creates a very energetic feeling, and it just makes you feel like you're kind of like on the adventure, on the heights of these, drug heists and shootouts and stuff. Yeah, you're like coming along for the ride. And the accordion will often fill in the end of the lyric, so the lyric will kind of drag out towards the end and then fill in with an accordion kind of solo. Okay, so now moving on to modern corridos and how it's created by the Chicano experience. Okay, so modern corridos are defined by the Chicano Gen Z experience. So basically, these are, you're typically second generation Mexican Americans who moved over here, or their parents moved over here from Mexico, and they're telling their stories now of what it's like here growing up and their culture that they're surrounded by. And yeah, so music talks a lot about how the lifestyle is as a Chicano. It involves a lot of the hard work that is part of that Mexican identity as a Chicano. The truck meets are very big as a Chicano, as you could see on the left cover art. And then a lot of times the subject of anxiety and depression in these artists are a big part of their music. And that's a big shift of going from machismo to a much more being open with oneself and depicting one's feelings. And however, it still really retains that, storytelling element of the past. However, these corridos are heavily reliant on the guitar, so a lot more like the traditional corridos, falls away from the accordion a little bit. The guitar is still a little high pitched. The texture, so now the textures that were once done on the accordion are being done by the guitar, so a lot more interesting varying textures there, and typically much slower in tempo, and vocals and guitars give off a much more somber feeling, and this is more to display the the somber nature and feelings sung in songs, and to depict that sadness and sorrow that you feel. And then bass guitar is also pretty big here. The deeper sound accents the somberness and ominous feeling. And you could really feel, especially in their vocals, the hurt and painful emotions that the artist feels. Well, yeah, that concludes my presentation. Here's a bibliography of my sources, and thank you for watching.